Hi, this is Stephanie Miller from The Stephanie Miller Show. Please enjoy this exclusive clip from my show on Political Voices Network.
He's the man who is
moment.
feared by America's adversaries.
Oh, wow,
But
yeah.
2 nights ago, when
Putin's
on Sarah
shaken.
Moment, said goodnight to his 2 boys, told them he loved them, and made sure to give each of them a kiss on the cheek.
2 boys.
And I will say, Don and Eric squirmed the same way my 4-year-old does when his daddy tries to give him a kiss on the cheeks.
Oh, God, that's so funny.
It's adorable.
Oh, my golly.
What about Barron?
Can I just say, speaking of being afraid of America's enemies, America's enemies are celebrating the J.D. Vance pick. That tells you all you need to know. We'll talk to Malcolm Nance about this in a bit, Carl. But Russian state media propagandists called J.D. Vance Trumpier than Trump. They're celebrating on Russian TV because he has said, she noted Vance once said, I got to be honest with you, I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or another. He's against them continuing to defend their borders. She said it's being said that Vance is Trumpier than Trump. If Trump is assassinated, another Trump would remain. She said Vance is a more principled right-winger than Trump.
Oh, please.
Oh, please. None of them. They're both completely free of any principle of any kind, which is perfect for our enemies, right?
That's how we ended up with the milquetoast speech last night.
Yeah.
Gone were the things that he would say when he thinks the cameras aren't on.
Right.
About wanting to ban abortion and being against LGBTQ people and thinking that Alex Jones is a reliable news source. The list goes on and on. Wanting women to stay in abusive marriages. It's not just that he's a phony. It's that, and maybe the reason that Trump was bored is because last night we saw a J.D. Vance that Donald Trump hasn't even ever seen.
Right.
Yeah. He's so smarmy. Right, Jody? He has that kind of like that, like finger guns. Like, didn't I meet you at a party in Santa Barbara? Like, that guy. Seriously, really? Man of the people, venture capitalist funded by Peter Thiel. I can't. And then he said what he said. Somebody tweeted, J.D. Vance is gross and he's a liar. They're going to ruin the American experiment, not fight for it. He's lying to us to protect Trump, who stole government secrets and collaborated with Russia. Someone else tweeted, the American experiment, he and Thiel definitely plan on ending the American democracy as we know it. Yeah, that's the one thing he said, right? When he said, we want to preserve the American experiment. Right, they're going to say, oh, that's an experiment that didn't work. So much for democracy. I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the party who rejects the scientific consensus. I don't trust them around climate change. I don't trust them around protecting our democracy. This is a very scary time for our country.
I mean, speaking of our dad's Republican Party, Liz Cheney said Vance's pledged he would do what Mike Pence wouldn't, overturn an election and legally seize power. The Trump GOP is no longer the party of Lincoln, Reagan, or the Constitution. He says the president can ignore the rulings of our courts. He would capitulate to Russia, sacrifice the freedom of our allies in Ukraine. Vance admitted that he would have helped Trump illegally seize power. That's tyranny. Neither Trump nor Vance is fit to serve. But, she's in the tiny minority in that party, Carl.
Well, that's because it's not a Republican Party anymore. It's a cult of personality.
Yeah.
It is not a Republican Party. It owns the copyright. It owns the trademark.
Do you agree with me that Chris Lavoie is wrong, that Democrats would not wear a Kotex on their ear if Joe Biden got a boo-boo? We are not a cult. All right, Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with you. Like, this is not the Republican Party that anybody remembers.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's some weird, it's just a Star Wars bar scene. Anyway, Carl, let's talk about our party. Yesterday, the hits just kept on coming, didn't they? What was I going to say here? I'm going in the order of when the stories came in, right? Because obviously, Speaker Pelosi was the last. And again, there was a difference, right, between stories that were leaked. Adam Schiff was the only one that actually spoke publicly. But the reporting is that Speaker Pelosi told, she will be forever Speaker, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. Told Biden he cannot win re-election and could destroy Democrats' chances of winning the House in November if he continues. The president responded by pushing back, telling Pelosi he's seen polls that indicate he can win. Thank you. I've seen the same ones. Another source described him as getting defensive. Carl, but then the reporting this morning is that he's being more receptive and is listening. What is your take on where we are?
Well,
Well,
I certainly think if there is going to be a change, then they've needed this time to kind of put
yeah,
pieces in place. Um, it- but again, he has the nomination, so it's up to Biden to
right.
choose what.
Right.
Um,
That's the thing Lawrence O'Donnell's been screaming about. First of all, this is historically suicidal. Anytime any party has done this at this point. But secondly, there is no mechanism other than Joe Biden making the decision. We've already had our primary. He has the delegates. And Republicans are just waiting with lawyers to try to see how they can, I mean, are you concerned? Talk to us about that a little bit, because you've been, hang on. Hold, please. I have quite a few stacks. I have J.D. Vance as a douchebag stack. I have Republicans in general are awful. I have the shooting stuff.
on your desk. That much.
Yeah, but anyway, I guess it's this whole thing about moving up. They decided not to move up
Right.
the nomination, but they had done that to make the deadline for Ohio. Can you
Right.
talk to us about the mechanics a little bit, Carl?
So you've got a couple things that I think people are probably looking at. A lot of it has to do with ballot access, but some of it has to do with who gets to use the money that's been raised by the campaign
Right.
as well. So there's a lot of legal questions out there. I don't think anything is insurmountable, but it's going to take, if it happens, it'll take very, careful planning and execution. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities for folks on the right to challenge things, and depending on the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said this, when I opened the show, Carl, but the one thing I know is Joe Biden is maybe the biggest patriot in this country, and I think he will do what he feels is best in his heart. And I think up until this moment, he has felt he is the best. And no one understands the threat of Donald Trump more than he does. But I feel like, again, as I've said, people can show him Nancy Pelosi, as you know, is a data person. She's looking at data and showing him no one's ever been a better vote counter, right, in our history. So, I mean, they can present everything to him, and then I trust him. I trust my president to tell me what's in his heart and what we should do, And but let me just talk to you about this. So the DNC will no longer try to nominate Biden on an accelerated timeline. They were going to do it July 21st, which is coming up, right? So the ballot access deadlines begin on August 20th because ballots must be printed. So was this Kate Beddington? She said waiting for 8/19 to formally nominate a candidate would give very little breathing room to get a name on those ballots if there were to be a brokered convention. Oh, God. An earlier virtual process in some ways leaves more flexibility on the table, not less, because it doesn't put the parties back against the wall regarding ballot deadlines on 8/20. Probably not the argument the Biden team wants to make, to say the least, but it's another thing those that are upset about this should consider. So now they're saying we're going to push it back to August. Tell me. I'm out. Explain what we're, because clearly I feel like the choice is Kamala. That's it. And that's even what the president reportedly is saying. He's asking specific questions. Can Kamala win? In my opinion, yes.
Of course she can.
Yeah.
Of course she can. And I think she would be the likely nominee.
Of course.
I think the ballot access thing is a really big deal here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where the right would probably have the most ground on legal challenges, because they'd be able to file them all over the country, of course, right?
Yeah.
And
so would.
And would.
Yes.
I don't think that if there's a brokered convention, I think Democrats are likely to fall in line behind a single person. I don't think you're going to end up with 30 candidates in like 900 ballots, but because people are that amped to finish this thing and defeat Donald Trump.
Yeah. I mean, a little what's out there. They're talking about, which story was this? Jeffries and Schumer privately warned Biden he could imperil Democrats. This was the reporting from the Washington Post, earlier yesterday. They told the president directly he should end his candidacy, saying that the only way to preserve his legacy and save the country from another Trump term Right. And so, it is interesting how the reporting has evolved. Let's see, the co-chairs of the convention's rules committee issued a letter saying the virtual roll call would take place, but they promised it would not be rushed and would not occur before August 1st. So here's some of this other reporting, Carl, just, people on Twitter, I don't care. I voted in the primary. He's my guy. Tough S. We voted for our candidate. I mean, I don't even know what to make of the polling. The new polling is like, 2/3 of Democrats want Biden out. That hasn't been my, experience. But what do you think?
I think the polling is going to continue to be all over the map, and particularly on that question, because there's a lot of unknowns, right? And so you're not necessarily going to get a full picture of what people actually think. I think this internal polling that we're now seeing leaked out is probably driving a lot of the conversation in Washington, showing Biden potentially vulnerable in a half a dozen more states than were currently thought to be in play. This is, we keep talking about unprecedented times. At this point, it's all precedented.
Yeah.
Who knows what?
Yeah, I've said that from day one, Carl. This feels like anything can happen year. So, Adam Schiff started yesterday's news cycle before it became Jeffries and Schumer and Pelosi. He said President Biden has been one of the most consequential presidents in our nation's history. In his lifetime of service as Senator, VP, now President, has made our country better, but our nation is at a crossroads. A second Trump presidency will undermine the very foundation of our democracy, and I have serious concerns about whether the president can defeat Trump in November. He acknowledged that ultimately is Biden's choice. Thank you. But he thought Biden should pass the torch. Schiff said he will do everything he can to help whoever ends up at the Democratic nominee, while identifying defeating Trump as the one singular goal of this election cycle. So the polling found, I don't know which one. This is the AP poll, Carl, found 70% of Americans, 65% of Democrats want Biden to drop out. Just 29% of the electorate feel Biden has the mental capacity. A second Blue Labs analytics poll found that an alternative Democratic candidates run ahead of Biden by an average of 3 points across the battleground states. I mean, I guess what's hard is we've seen polling be so off in so many elections that it's just, you're like, okay, I don't want to put my head in the sand, but I also am like, like I was saying, 538 came out and showed Biden ahead for the first time.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the issue with the polling is, that's probably driving part of this conversation is still close. Even when Biden's ahead, it's still close.
Yeah.
And, people are thinking, okay, but we've been doing so much better than polling over the last few years.
Yeah.
But that would also mean that if polling is showing other Democrats doing better, that they would also do even better than the polling suggests. So I think, look, we are also Democrats. So we start off every election cycle in panic mode.
Yeah.
And so this certainly helped that sentiment.
And I've always thought, I mean, at whatever point Kamala, I'm a huge fan being out here in California, and I think who better to prosecute the case, And also, you know what else, Jody? The J.D. Vance's wife is a woman of color, lady lawyer. So, so much for that attack. By the way, isn't it in Project 2025, the only legitimate family is a husband and a wife that stays at home, a husband who works, and he's married to the lady lawyer. Okay.